Yo, good afternoon. This is your host, Kyle LaRoche. I'm on Minutes to Win It, coming to you live from Radio Normandie. And so this week, we're discussing how survey platforms actually make money. Because if you joined us last week, we talked about who pays for research and why. So this week, we're moving from that buyer side to the platform side. I want to start off by saying, in general, survey platforms are not charities. They are not magic. And they're not usually scams in that sense of cartoon villains, Mojo Jojo, you name it. They are, however, businesses, and they sit between companies that need opinions and people who are willing to give them. So that's just it. It brings me to this core idea. Survey platforms make money by organizing, filtering, packaging, and selling access to people's opinions. They profit from being the middleman, right? And they sit between research buyers and respondents. So it's an obvious question. If they pay me, who pays them? You know, you log into a survey site, you get started, you answer some questions, maybe you get screened out, maybe you earn a few bucks. So where does that money come from? Well, I'll explain. A lot of people use survey platforms without ever asking about that business model. Maybe it's just a dashboard they see, some points, or they got to pay out PayPal otherwise. But I'm here to tell you that every platform is a part of a chain. Someone higher up is paying for access to this data, and the platform takes a cut for making that access possible. So, yes, in short, you could call survey platforms middlemen. Some call it liaison. It's whatever you want to call it. But a company, well, I'll start with a simple structure from the top. A company wants consumer opinions. That's what it begins with. Then a research firm or a brand needs respondents, right? So a platform gathers or sends those people to the studies. Those people that are sent, they're the respondents, and they get a small piece of the total payment. The platform keeps the rest for overhead, right? Infrastructure, recruiting, screening, matching, and margin. They are also running a business with employees. So this brings us to our first stop. You're not exactly the customer. You're part of the product, and the customers are other players. You're being organized and delivered to them. Now, this isn't to take away your humanity, but we're talking about the market here. The platform's actual customer is businesses buying research access. It's Scotch Brite. They want to know what color sponge, what shape sponge are you going to like. Uh, it's Chick-fil-A. They want to know what cheese to add. So the platform is selling access, not just surveys, right? I want to emphasize this because I said earlier they're not charities and it's not magic. Survey companies are rarely just paying people for their opinions out of kindness. In reality, they're selling things like access to targeted demos, demographics, access to verified consumers. Do you have a wallet? They're working for speed of recruitment. How fast can you get me 10 people who have bought this car? They want clean data, just insights. They're looking for screeners that get to the right folks, and in some cases, they're actually looking for panels of people who can be reached out to again. Maybe it's a longitudinal study, they're doing it over time. So, to bring it all home, a survey platform is not really in the business of questions. It is in the matching business and the delivery of data business. So, I want you to really tune in because this next section is something you might want to pay attention to if you're actually interested in returning from surveys. A screener is not wasted from the platform's point of view. Screening is part of the service. So you usually get filtered out because of what the business needs. That's the short and sweet. The buyer may only want women 25 to 34 or homeowners in the southeast. They might want people who bought a mattress in the last 6 months. I've answered a couple of these, but maybe they're looking for IT decision makers at mid-sized companies. I don't fit in that category, but of course, if they tell me I fit, I apply. Maybe they're looking for parents with kids under 5, or they want, like I said earlier with wallets, they want people who use a certain bank, certain app, or streaming service. I've gotten questions like these before as well. So, if 100 people try and only 8 qualify, it's not exactly busted. That's just the system doing targeted filters. They're filtering in a targeted manner. The platform actually earns by helping buyers avoid paying for the wrong people. So you can view it that way. You're not missing a chance to earn money, but you're making sure that you earn as much as you can because you're not taking from a pool meant for others. That all creates a spread, and so to explain margin, I'll use the kings. A company might pay a much higher amount per qualified respondent than what that respondent actually sees. So, in an example, let's say a buyer is willing to spend serious money for crypto users. The platform might pay the respondent a decent chunk. Then the platform might keep part for the panel, keep part for tech and preventing fraud, cheaters basically. They may also slice some for serving the clients, servicing clients, and then they'll keep part as profit again because they're a business. So if you as a user you get $3, $8, maybe you get $150. That doesn't mean that's the full value of the response. The response was part of a larger chain in terms of prices. Just to bring it all together, the person answering the survey sees the payout. The platform sees the contract. And so moving right along, there are different platform models. The industry isn't just one thing. So I want to break it down so you see how. A, there are points-based survey panels. I think of Focus Group by Sago. These, they keep the users inside the ecosystem and they give out points. You redeem the points later. They make participation feel gamified, and that keeps breakage high when the users never cash out efficiently. Meaning, your users will keep a point balance instead of redeeming for $3, $5 every other day. So instead of having to shell out all the time, you've got recurring users. B, You've got research recruiters and focus group platforms. They vary a little bit from the first, those points-based panels, and that's because they're trying to connect users to higher paying interviews. Maybe they're testing a game. I applied for a game test the other day. Or they're looking for panels of people they can come back to, like I mentioned. So those in particular make money by sourcing harder to find respondents. I need you to be in Alaska, for example, and then filling those studies quickly. How fast can you get me those users in Alaska? And then moving on to C, we have affiliate style routers. So this is where you get into those gray platforms. In my experience, see some sites they send you to third-party surveys and then they get paid for the traffic, the pure traffic, or the leads, or they have a different metric. Maybe it's completed responses. But the reason I say it gets messier is because multiple companies are involved. You'll try a survey, it'll refresh, you'll get an offer to go, hey, do you want to join a different platform for a different survey? And that's like, oh, you didn't qualify, or so on and so forth. Maybe you're familiar with branded client communities, basically our fourth option, or D. Some companies, they build ongoing respondent panels, and that's for brands or they're for agencies, and they profit from managing the long-term access to those folks, that audience. So I responded to a survey from Blizzard after a game, and they gave me a link to Blizzard Research. And I signed up to be on that panel. That is designed for them to be able to ask people consistently about changes to the new hero, which they did ask me. That's what I completed in the survey before they invited me. It was asking about the new character, Sierra. And so that's just four different ways, or sort of four different models for platforms. We had points-based panels, research recruiters, those focus group platforms. You have affiliate style connectors or routers, and then you have branded client communities. Think Blizzard, you know, think surveys on the back of Burger King. They want people who just bought there to comment on the food they got. So, because there are different types of platforms, some feel differently than others. To be candid, some feel worse. So, here's why they feel worse. I want to tell you, it's a good reason. See, the bad feeling often comes from incentives being misaligned. So, again, they're not charities, they're not magic, but my point is a platform may prioritize volume over user experience. They may prioritize lots of attempts over lots of completions. I mean, maybe their focus is data capture, so they just want people and their emails before they disconnect them and say, oh, you didn't really match the survey. And then some along that line straight up keep users hopeful enough to stay active. They answer platforms every day because there's a chance at winning a jackpot of some kind. You name it. Lots of hypotheticals. So that doesn't mean every platform is a scam. It's fraudulent. But it means that the platform may be optimized for the buyers and their demand, or platform revenue first, and then, much to our disagreement, they prioritize respondent satisfaction second. So, just to keep from getting too disillusioned, not every frustrating survey experience is a scam, but some platforms are clearly built to extract more than they generate. Now, there are some pieces involved, specifically costs, that you may not consider. And so it is a relationship on both sides. Preventing fraud is a part of their business because the same way they can sort of game you, get you to contribute a lot, users are always looking to game. Their platforms take away more than they actually contributed for. So again, to those costs that people don't consider, platforms also make money by being trusted, which means they have to control for bots, duplicate accounts, just bad data, speeders, those people who rush through, and thus inconsistent respondents. Maybe you email people, they don't respond to join at the time they said they would, even after you invite them. Or fake demos, fake sort of groups of people. So part of what the client pays for or is paying for is the platform's ability to say, these are real people and they're matched and they have usable answers. That's the value prop. Now that leads us to why your profile matters so much. And it does carry weight. I'll explain. Your demo, right? Your profile, your purchase habits, your job title, how many people in your house, your location, they all affect how valuable you are to the platform's clients, right? The people who are paying for research. So this explains why some people do get better opportunities. It's not the effect of the Matthew principle, but it's to say that contribute all the information you can about yourself in terms of demand, I would say. They get the better opportunities because they're closer to the categories buyers want. I don't mean to minimize anybody, but I mean, video game companies want gamers, people who play other games. They want people who have certain specs on their machine, so on and so forth. It extends to many things. To bring it home, it's that you're not paid according to how hard the survey feels, right? Oh, they're asking me so many questions, or this is wicked long. You're paid according to how valuable your profile is to demand. I mean, a dairy company does not want to hear from the lactose intolerant unless they do, unless there's a specific aim there. That sort of supply and demand helps sharpen reality, right? Sort of widen your eyes. Now, when it does that, I hope it brings to light the hidden economics, right, of the free money, the hidden economy. Survey income does feel like free money, only at first, because you think, oh, I don't need any inventory, I don't need anything in particular, and I don't have a boss, right? I don't have to report to anyone. But that money's coming from somewhere very, very specific. It's actually a company budget for research. And that does come with some factors. What it means is survey income depends on demand from the buyers, the platform's business relationships, your fit into those studies, and how efficiently the platform can monetize your participation. So the money is real from surveys, but it's not random. It's part of a real industry that has real incentive. So here's another part you should tune into. Lock in if you want to skip the yap. This is where I get practical. People listening, you should understand that one, the platform is a business, not a benefactor. So they are being matched and filtered. That means screenouts are part of the model, which is the game. And the game also involves the fact that payouts reflect the market demand, right? It's not about fairness. Oh, you owe me this and that. Mm-mm. Some platforms are better because their incentives are cleaner. That's the ticket. But in my experience, the smartest users treat surveys like a tool. They don't start dreaming. All that brings me to say this. Once you get how survey platforms make money, you don't take every bad experience personally. In addition, I would say you stop being naive about what the platform owes you. I just want to say, before we wrap up, diving into this and sharing more about how this works has been very rewarding for me, and I hope it's been as rewarding for you. Because every day I hone my game. When I do this, I discuss what I'm working on with others, show them how they can get involved, all the relevant pieces. I would say it's about leveling up. I don't hate the game. I don't hate the player. I want to learn the game. I want to learn the players. Know the game and play it better. You could say a lot. One of my favorite things I've ever heard from anything has got to be a quote from the kids show Teen Titans. I mean, winning isn't everything. It's just the only thing that matters. That's why we work smarter, not harder. And to wrap up, I mean, I get told a lot I'm a dreamer, and I can't help that. I think I think this every time. I mean, just what good is a small dream? But I accept that title others give me. I just want to counter. My thinking is grounded. So what's the point? Accept that survey platforms make money by selling organized access to opinions from real people. That's it. The money comes from selling access to the opinions. They earn it by finding the right people, filtering out the wrong ones, and delivering data you can use. And for that work, they keep a margin in the middle. Once you understand that, you can use these platforms like a pro. You stop seeing them as mysterious apps that sometimes bless you, and you start seeing them as marketplaces. They have rules, they have incentives, they make trade offs. Just another note before I go. When I first started using these platforms, survey platforms, I judged them almost entirely by whether I got paid. That's why my rate of completion was so low, among other things. But genuinely, the more I played, I realized the better question was, what is this platform set up to do? What is it optimized for? Then I asked, is it really to reward me better? Or well enough? Or is it to sort me out efficiently? That's been my talk today. We've covered quite a bit. We discussed if they pay me, who pays them? And so I hope we answered that question for you. We'll be back next week discussing some more. I've been Kyle LaRoche. This has been Minutes to Win It, and I will see you next time.